Hello. Today I want to talk about one of the most widely read books of the interwar period, Erich Maria Remarque's 1929 novel, All Quiet on the Western Front. Originally published in German as Im Westen nichts Neues, literally nothing new in the West, the book was soon translated into other European languages and became an international bestseller, with some 2.5 million copies being sold worldwide in its first 18 months in print. The book is a stark description of the horrors of the fighting on the Western Front during World War I. It is quite clearly humanistic, anti-militarist, and internationalist, with obvious empathy for the ordinary men fighting on both sides of the conflict. As such, it came to symbolize the revulsion for war felt by many people by the late 1920s. As one French critic opined, it represented a sort of plebiscite in favor of peace. It begins with the famous preface, "This book is to be neither an accusation nor an adventure, for death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. It will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped its shells, were destroyed by the war." As an indication of the popularity and appeal of the story, 2 English-language movies have already been made of the book. The first came out in 1930 and soon became a cinema classic. Directed by Louis Milestone, it starred Lou Ayres in the central role of Paul Baumer, the idealistic schoolboy who is transformed and destroyed by the war. The second appeared in 1979, directed by Delbert Mann, with Richard Thomas as Baumer. A third version is apparently in the offing, with Daniel Radcliffe of Harry Potter fame in the central role. The author of the book was Erich Maria Remarque, a German Catholic from Osnabrück, in what was formerly the Kingdom of Hanover. Remarque had himself served on the Western Front as a young conscript in 1917, being wounded by shrapnel during the Third Battle of Ypres and sent back to Germany to recuperate. He drew upon his own experiences to give the book its vivid quality. Following the success of All Quiet on the Western Front, Remarque wrote a sequel, The Road Back. With increasing instability in Germany and the rise of the Nazis, he moved to Switzerland in 1931, and then to the United States in 1939, later becoming a naturalized American citizen before returning to Switzerland after the war. He continued to write, and his novels sold well. He died in 1970 at the age of 72. His second wife was the Hollywood star Paulette Goddard. For German militarists, most notably the Nazis, Remarque's book was an offensive attack on their own myths of the nationalist dedication and martial heroism of the common German soldier. Already in 1930, at the time of the German release of the first film version of the book, the Nazi leader and propagandist Joseph Goebbels achieved success in disrupting the showing of the movie, sending dozens of stormtroopers to the cinema to heckle, let off stink bombs, hurl bags of sneezing powder at the patrons, and release white mice amongst the seats. Within 10 minutes the cinema was a madhouse. Then, after the police had cleared the auditorium, the stormtroopers attacked those they called Jews outside the cinema and organized demonstrations against the movie for several days. Eventually the censor banned the film as being injurious to German prestige, even though President Hindenburg himself had approved it. Chancellor Brüning acquiesced in this ban because he was worried by the extent of brown-shirt violence and feared further Nazi attacks on cinemas or patrons. One small success was achieved by the anti-Nazis when an anonymous contributor managed to get a section of All Quiet on the Western Front published in the Nazi daily Der Angriff. Later, in May 1933, after the Nazis had come to power, Goebbels included Remarque's book in the mass book burnings organized by the Nazis in most of the German university towns. These were of books deemed to contain insidious poison which threatens the very roots of Germandom. Finally, in 1943, frustrated by their inability to punish Remarque himself, the Nazis arrested his sister, Elfriede, and after a brief trial in a people's court, condemned her to death by guillotine for undermining morale.